My name's Aaron, and I was dead in sin. I grew up in a family that wasn't very godly at all. We grew up in very abusive type environment when I was coming up, with a lot of drugs and alcohol influence, and there was no rules. I didn't care who you were. I, I was into drugs and alcohol and chasing girls, and that was my life. Um, I think the first time I was ever drunk, I was probably about 10 years old. First time I got picked up by the police, I was 12. Um, I was bad news, and everybody knew it, and I had a reputation, in my community at a very young age. By the time it came for me to leave the house, I was 18, joined the military, moved off. I was in the military for a couple of years before I met my wife, and then about a year after we were married, we started having children. And so my upbringing was shown through how I treated my wife. I had 2 kids, and I was, they're looking to me to teach them, how to live and things like that. And so at first I didn't take a big deal to it. I think Tiffany told me one day I was passed out drunk on the floor at Logan. He was very young, probably about a year or 2 old, and he was crawling around on me trying to wake me up, "Daddy, daddy, daddy," and I was passed out drunk on the floor. I didn't know it, and so that really kind of, I didn't like it. I told myself, I didn't want to. I remember seeing my parents and seeing my father, and and I grew up in a bar. I see people do that stuff all the time. And I didn't want my children to have the same experiences in life. After Logan was born, my oldest son, my wife started talking about wanting to dedicate him to Christ. She grew up in a very religious family, very religious home, and I just didn't know what that meant. I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea what this giving your life to Christ thing was all about. So I went to church with her, and I did not like it. I thought it was the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. And so I would go with her to please her, go to church with her just, so I wouldn't get nagged on. Kind of sure check the block type thing. Well, after a while, things started making more and more sense to me. After I was going to church, seeing her, take the kids to church. They would still go. I would sit home on the couch and watch TV or whatever it is that I did on Sundays, So they would keep going to church, and I didn't know what that commitment of, dedicating my children to Christ was until just recently. My second son, Lane, he was born, and we dedicated him as well. And that's when things kind of started, making more sense. Hey, I'm supposed to be in charge of this family, guiding and directing and things like that. And I'm just not doing that. I didn't want to live that lifestyle. I didn't want my children to be raised the way I was, where it was just, you raising yourself. I wanted them to know, hey, I'm who I am today because that's what happened, but I want you to be better than who I am. So I was real tore up about that. I didn't know what to do. And we have close friends that are Christians, and they're like, you need to give it to God. You need to let Him take that from you. And so I prayed one night, and I said, hey, I know I'm not that close to you, but if this is your will, I'm willing to do whatever you want me to do. Whatever it is that I'm supposed to do, I want to do that. And the next day, I went into work, and they said, hey, look, you're not going to Korea. Your med board's going through. Your military career's over. And so, as much as I loved the military, I was 100% being a soldier, pushing soldiers, doing my job, that's not what I was supposed to do. And I guess that's the big, kind of turning point for me is that, I was willing to do. Hey, what you say? What do you want? And that's my response. This is what I want. It's not the direction I want you to go. I want you to be doing something else. So I think in that same aspect as how I led soldiers in the military, I can do that with my family, or with community, or kids, or troubled teens, or whatever it may be. Because I've been there. I graduated from alternative ed high school. I got kicked out of school. I got a good family, and I know that. And I know the only reason I have that is because God gave them to me. He said you're going to be responsible for these people, and He gave that to me, and I'm very grateful for that. I am undead by grace. A symphony of life Himself, of love herself.